So object-oriented programming in general has a few features or reasons why people like to use them. I think sometimes they call them principles as well. Let me call them principles. I think I like that word more. Oops. Don't know how that happened. Okay. So some of the principles of OOP, I think these are the only four: encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. So encapsulation basically means data access can be restricted based on need. So if you define a class and you have specific variables that you want someone to access based on this class, you can, let's say, let me give you an example here. So let's say in my employee, this function apply raise. Let's say this apply raise function has a temporary variable that it uses. So let's call this maybe difference equals x, or equals like some number, and you use this number in a computation in here. You don't really need people to care about this number or be able to access it specifically. This is contained within the function that it needs to be contained. And the person who is accessing the class will only have access to the instance variables and class variables, but they won't have access to the stuff inside the functions that you want to maybe keep hidden, or you don't really have a need for the user or the developer rather to access these things. Any questions on encapsulation? In some other languages, I know I just asked a question, but in some other languages, you can specify that this variable stays private, or if it's public. So if you define, let's say, these instance methods, variables, and you say that this one is a private variable, then when you create it, when you instantiate an employee, you won't be able to access their first name. It will stay private to the class. Python, I think, has something similar. If you do like an underscore or something like that, then it becomes, you can't access it. It becomes hidden, but then whenever else in your function, you would have to use this as well to identify it. So now if I try to say employee1 dot first name, I won't find it. That's dot first name, but it would still show up with the underscore, so it's not really hidden. So encapsulation works a little better in other languages, better than Python, but yeah, that's typically what encapsulation means. Abstraction, you can put your logic and complexity of your code hidden away from the person who wants to use your object. So I don't care what is happening in this function, whatever calculations happen. I know this one's a very simple calculation, but if there was a very complex one, I don't really care how it's implemented. I just want to say that I want to apply a raise to my employee, and that is it. So that is abstraction. Basically, hiding the complexity of something to a lower level so that you only call a function name and then it will do all the things for you. You don't have to actually worry about implementing this stuff yourself. Where's my notes? Okay. Inheritance, we'll talk about that more on Wednesday, but that is when you create classes that share specific attributes and functions with each other, then you create a class that inherits from a different class. So it will inherit all its attributes and all its functions, and you can reuse them in a bit more modified way. So let's say if you have a dog and you have a cat, so those are two separate classes, but both of them are animals. Both of them have a lot of similar attributes that are shared. So you can create a class animal that would then create, you can create a dog and a cat off of. So you can use the shared attributes. And we'll see, yeah, don't worry about this one. We'll see it on Wednesday. And polymorphism is kind of attached to this principle a little bit, but when you create objects, you can have them behave differently based off of specific situations. So based off of what it is or what the class you're instantiating you need it to do. But yeah, these are the 4 principles that people usually think of when they talk about OOP. Any questions? Oh, I see there's a chat message. Am I referring to extends with the
inheritance thing you're saying, where like you create class from class, but it borrows
similar.
Properties? Is it you take extends?
Similar, yeah. I don't think Python has extends, but
oh, you're right. Yeah, I think
that's Java. I believe, yeah, or I think, yeah, a few other languages use it. Java for sure uses. Does it use extends?
JavaScript, yeah.
Oh, JavaScript does. Okay, yeah. But yeah, that's a great question. Any other questions related to this? Okay. So our lesson is pretty much done. I'm going to go over what our assignments are for this for today. So let me open this up a little bit. Go to the assignments. So the first one is a pretty simple one. App users is like a 3-parter assignment. So we're going to do one today, one tomorrow, and one the day after. So for today, you are creating an app and you need app users. You need an object that will hold app user information. So all you are doing is writing a user class, and you are gonna hold information for that user in attributes. So it doesn't have to be these specifically. Make them what you want. This is your app, your user. You're creating, you can define what information you want to hold. And then just practice just creating a few users and seeing if you can actually see the attributes and stuff like that. So that's for the first one. The second one is guessing game. So build a simple guessing game. You will create a guessing game class. And when you initialize it, you will send in an integer. And yeah, there's more information here, but basically you're guessing like a number from, so you initialize the game with a number, and that number becomes, I think the max. Is an integer.
I think it's the right answer is when you initialize it, or no?
It might be. Initialize with an integer. Oh, it is. Oh, so you would call it like answer or something like that. So basically you have the person guess. If they guess 5, then you would have to return too low. If they guess 20, too high. And it would have like a solved function seeing if someone had guessed it already or not. So here there's a little bit of a defined one, so you can play around with it. So just create your guessing game class and make it work, basically. the game is here with inputs. Any questions on this? Or the one before? No. All right, the last one, CSV reader. So you're basically creating a program that for a pet adoption center that can read data from CSV files. So yeah, you could read this, but you're basically writing a program that takes input from the command line, and then you can give it like the name of the animal, and then you're supposed to return the information about the animal. And there's some data files that have already been included here. So we have cats.csv, it just has a name, age, and breed, and dogs as well. So basically, if someone tells you cats, you will give them information on cats, and so on. So there is the CSV library that you'll be using today. Here's the documentation for it. If you need a bit like a different resource to understand and to use this, you can use this resource down here, which I also found earlier. I don't want to create a free account. Thank you. Hold on, but yeah, any questions on this? I'll show you guys in a sec how to get around that. All right, one sec.